With free agency quickly approaching, teams are going to have tough decisions on whether or not to pay players or to let them walk and test the waters of free agency. I made a video a few weeks ago discussing offensive players in free agency and where they will go, and now it's time to predict where big-name defensive free agents will go. Big-name players for this free agency class include Clowney, Chris Jones, and Byron Jones, all of which we'll discuss. But before we get started though, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel as all support is very much appreciated. Now let's begin. The first free agent we're going to discuss is Clowney. Clowney in 6 years has just 32 sacks after being taken with the first overall pick back in 2014 and was described coming out of South Carolina as a once-in-a-generation prospect. However, Clowney hasn't been that type of player, at least not consistently, and he is now a free agent. The Seahawks have nearly $60 million available in cap room, and whether they pay him a hefty amount is to be determined. Based on Seattle's past with how they can develop pass rushers and defensive linemen, like Frank Clark and Chris Clemens for example, I wouldn't be surprised if they let him walk. Clowney had just 3 sacks in 13 games for the Seahawks, and no matter how you slice it, the Seahawks wanted more production out of him from that category. Clowney did produce an impressive 4 forced fumbles and had a pick 6, but is that enough for the Seahawks to shell out a 4 or 5 year deal worth at the minimum $14 million per year? I personally think the Seahawks do at the end of the day choose to pay Clowney, as pass rushers are at a premium, and Clowney has shown flashes in his 6-year career so far. Do I think Clowney deserves to get paid $14 or $15 million per year, which is what somebody will without a doubt pay him? No, I don't think he's worth even close to that, but I think the Seahawks pay him on a heavily loaded front contract in case he does not perform up to expectations, and they can get out of the deal after a year or two if worse comes to worse. The next free agent we'll discuss is Super Bowl champion Chris Jones. Chris Jones is the best interior defensive lineman not named Aaron Donald in football. In 2018, he had 15.5 sacks as a defensive tackle, which is simply unheard of and would have been in the conversation for Defensive Player of the Year if Aaron Donald didn't have 20 that year. He played in 13 games this year and still put up 9 sacks, which is remarkable. However, he is a free agent, and as high as the Kansas City Chiefs have been for the past month or so, the come-down-to-earth reality moment will soon hit when their star defensive tackle is no longer on the team. The Chiefs will move on from Sammy Watkins and have $30 million in cap space, and while Chris Jones won't take up that much, he will probably take up at least $17 or $18 million somewhere, and the Chiefs simply will not be able to afford him. The top 5 current teams in salary cap space, according to Spotted.com, are Miami, Indy, Tampa, Buffalo, and Dallas. However, Dallas has Dak, Amari, and Byron Jones to pay, so their funds quickly go dry, so I'm not including them in this. Chris Jones to Miami would be very fun, as he could team up with Christian Wilkins and develop a dominant defensive line down there, and the same thing applies with Buffalo, where he could team up with Ed Oliver. However, I think Chris Jones ends up in Indy, as they will pay him a large amount and make him a well-paid man he deserves to be. I wouldn't be surprised at all if he ends up in Miami or Buffalo, but I think he ends up in Indy for now. The next player we'll discuss is Bucs defensive end Shaq Barrett. Shaq Barrett is a tricky free agent for a few reasons. From the years 2015 through 2018, he had a combined 14 sacks in 61 games that included 15 starts. However, in 2019, he erupted and had 19.5 sacks, 6 forced fumbles, 37 quarterback hits, and even had an interception. He will turn 28 years old during the 2020 season, and after the year he just had, he will absolutely 100% get a payday from somebody, and the only question is who. I would like to think that with being an undrafted free agent, that Shaq will go anywhere and work relentlessly to keep the play up from 2019 into the 20s and for the rest of his career. With a player like Barrett, who just put up nearly 20 sacks, he will get at minimum $15 million per year, and I could see Barrett 100% going to the Jets. The Jets should be wary of Barrett, as he could be just a one-year wonder like we've seen with a lot of NFL players before, like Albert Haynesworth for example, who quote-unquote secure the bag only to never do anything for the team they actually sign with. I think the Jets need to protect themselves in this case and make it a very front-heavy contract with all of the guarantees out of the way in his first 2 years of the deal. The Jets have over $55 million in cap space available and will more than likely be active in free agency and need a pass rush in the worst way. Quinnen Williams is, though just a year into his career, is not looking great, and I don't think he'll be a bust, but to say he's looked good so far is just simply not true. And if Barrett in any way could help him, then they have to sign him. I like Barrett to the Jets, and I hope he can rejuvenate a pass rush there as well. The next free agent we'll discuss is Matt Judon. Matt Judon is the next great Ravens pass rusher to more than likely hit free agency, as we have in the past seen Paul Kruger, Parnell McPhee, and Za'Darius Smith all leave Baltimore to go get lucrative contracts elsewhere. Unlike any of the previous three guys, Judon had relatively good stats prior to his contract year in Baltimore. Paul Kruger was a relative unknown prior to his contract year, and then signed a 5-year, $40 million deal with Cleveland. Baltimore generates pass rushers, and teams always sign them to big deals, and Judon is next in line. But the question is, where does he go? In this video so far, I have predicted Clowney to re-sign with Seattle, Chris Jones to Indy, and Shaq Barrett to go to the Jets. There are 3 teams I could see Judon going to, 2 for the same reason and 1 for an entirely different reason. The Texans have over $65 million in cap space available, and will need money for Deshaun Watson relatively soon, but they have the money to go after Judon for now. We have seen before, like when they signed Tyrann Mathieu, they are not afraid to spend money to get free agents. Judon could line up across from JJ Watt, and with a division they can win and should win every year, the appeal to go there is significant. The next team I could see is the Cardinals, and for the same reason, which is opposite Chandler Jones. Those two wreaking havoc on Russell Wilson, Jimmy Garoppolo, and Jared Goff could spring the Cardinals into a great 2020, along with the progression of quarterback Kyler Murray. We saw what San Francisco with a great defensive line and pass rush can do, and Judon and Jones would certainly be an elite duo. The third team, and I don't know how realistic this is, but he could come home and play for the Lions. The Lions saw firsthand how good a former Ravens pass rusher was in Za'Darius Smith when they played the Packers, and they might want to get a piece of that. How realistic is that at this time, I'm not sure, but if coming home meant a lot to Judon to play in front of his family and his friends, then I'm sure he would sacrifice some money to play for the Lions. Judon will get top dollar from somebody, and that's for sure. The next player we'll discuss is Viking safety Anthony Harris. Anthony Harris came into the league in 2015 as an undrafted free agent out of the University of Virginia and has not disappointed since. It took him some time to carve out his place in the Vikings defense, but when he became a full-time starter in 2019, he was tied for the league lead in interceptions. As a Vikings fan, I'm going to try and remain as unbiased as I can here, but the reality is Anthony is already 28 and will turn 29 during the upcoming season. In addition to this, other teams would have to wonder about his success in the Vikings secondary and being next to Harrison Smith, and how much of Anthony's personal success is a reflection on teams not wanting to throw the ball near Harrison. I love Anthony Harris, and he will get paid by somebody. The tough thing for Vikings fans to accept here, myself included, is this is his one big shot at a payday, and he has to go elsewhere to maximize his money. If Anthony does go elsewhere, and I kind of expect him to, I can't blame him, because we all know now if we were making, we'll just say $50,000 per year as an example, and a competitor comes into our business and offers us $60,000 per year, we know we're taking more money, and why some fans can't accept this, I will never understand. Players have to look out for themselves and their family's best financial interest, and Anthony Harris here is no different. I want him back in purple, but I don't think it happens. The final player we'll discuss in today's video is Cowboys corner Byron Jones. Byron Jones is in an interesting situation because at 27 years old, he will undoubtedly get paid by somebody. The Cowboys technically have the 5th most salary cap space at the moment, but when they pay Dak, it quickly dwindles down, and when they pay Amari or Byron Jones, it dwindles down even further. There's almost no way the Cowboys can pay all 3 of these players, and with Dak almost certain to get paid, it comes down to Amari versus Byron in terms of who to keep. For the sake of this video, we're going to assume Byron does not get paid by the Cowboys and becomes an unrestricted free agent. My prediction for where he goes boils down to a few things. Jones is already 27 and will turn 28 during the 2020 season, and we've seen corners just lose the ability to play as they get older, and I think the 30-year-old mark we use with running backs should also be applied to corners as well. Xavier Rhodes can't turn his hips anymore and routinely gets dusted. We saw what happened with Reeves at the end of his career as well. Corners have one chance to get paid, and Byron has to take it. Byron also grew up in Connecticut, just 100 miles from the Giants Stadium in East Rutherford, New Jersey. The Giants have over $60 million available in cap space and need a corner as well. Pair him with DeAndre Baker and they could have a great future. I think Byron will want to sign with the Giants and play the team that chose not to pay him twice a year to try and get back at them and make them regret their decision. I could be wrong, but as of now, I think Byron signs with the Giants and tries to get his revenge twice a year for the next couple of years. That's all I have for today's video. I hope you enjoyed, and if you did, please like the video and subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you next time. Have a great day.